Hey guys, good afternoon and welcome back to this week's edition of What the Heck Do You Do? We're coming to you live on a Friday afternoon instead of Thursday this week with the holiday, but excited to be here. Thank you as always for tuning in. Typically we are on Thursdays at 9:30 a.m. and you can check us out by looking up BDLocal on Facebook and liking their page to get alerts when we go live. This week's sponsors are Cunningham Tax Services and Rich Rhodes, New York Life. If you're interested in coming on the show or being a sponsor, you can reach out to me at rich.rhodes@gmail.com and we'll get you all set up. But I am super excited to welcome this week's guest, Venessa Cunningham with Cunningham Tax Services. How are you today?
I'm glad it's Friday. Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. So your busy season's about to kick up, and
Yes.
so we will dive into all that. So I have the good fortune of being in the Ignite You networking group with Venessa. And so she was ready, willing, and able to come on this week, help me
Yes.
fill in a hole in the schedule that was created. So I appreciate your flexibility.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and dive in. First and foremost, why don't you tell us what the heck do you do?
I do a lot of things in the administrative aspects of a business, and so I call myself the back office assistant because accounting and taxes and payroll is all part of what goes on behind the scenes, so to speak, of most businesses that are not accounting offices.
Right. Okay. Awesome. So what size businesses do you typically work with?
The biggest payroll client I have has 39 employees.
Okay.
And my clients have revenue anywhere from $50,000 to $4 million annual sales.
Nice. Okay. And so you've been in the business for a while?
Yes. I'm starting my 34th year of doing tax returns, and I've been an accountant in excess of 40 years.
Awesome. That's a long time. So I'm excited to dive in and hear about some of the changes you've seen. But maybe tell us a little bit about how you got into the business.
Actually, it started off when I was a young'un, and my dad had a business from home called Kent 4x4.
Okay.
And he converted trucks to four-wheel drive and worked on Jeeps, and my brothers and him raced dirt bikes.
Okay.
So I grew up with trucks and Jeeps and dirt bikes. And my dad apparently was very poor at keeping records, and there was a Jeep that he worked on that something went wrong. I don't know the exact details of what went wrong, but I overheard a conversation between my mom and my dad, and she said something to the effect that if he had have kept better records, he wouldn't have lost the case in court.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently that was just, I didn't even know that I heard the conversation until I was a sophomore in high school.
Okay.
And I took a record keeping class. And all of a sudden it just clicked. Oh, that's what Mom was talking about when she chewed Dad out.
Gotcha.
And so I decided right then and there when I was a sophomore in high school that I wanted to be an accountant.
Interesting. Okay.
And my whole high school education program was basically set around that goal. And I took every business course that Thomas Jefferson High School offered.
Okay.
And I graduated with a 3.8 grade point average and went to college in Oregon.
Okay.
And just basically, when I moved to San Diego and got married, I went to college while my husband's submarine was in overhaul in San Francisco for 2 years.
Okay.
And that was how I finished my degree.
Gotcha. And so degree is in accounting then?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. And then what kind of work did you do prior to opening your own business?
My first accounting job was at the junkyard in Seattle that my dad went to all the time for parts.
Okay.
And so it was like working with friends, and it was a wonderful job. I really thoroughly enjoyed it and helped cement my belief that I really and truly did want to be an accountant.
Okay.
And then when I moved to San Diego to get married, my husband's submarine was on such an irregular schedule that I wanted to be able to be home when he was home.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to do that was to work from home.
Gotcha.
So we bought a 4-bedroom house in the outskirts of San Diego County, and I started basically from zero.
Mm-hmm.
And built my business up from there.
Awesome. And so when did you come back to Washington?
I came back in 2009.
Okay.
I got contacted on the internet from friends from high school that I hadn't spoken to in 25 years. And they invited me, excuse me, to come to Spokane and help them open up a home-based business.
Okay.
So I had met somebody on Match.com and had a relationship to go to, a job to go to, and a place to live. So I seized the opportunity
Wow.
and did that.
That's awesome.
Quit my job and everything.
Okay. So were you consulting with them to help them get their business off the ground, or were you their accounting department essentially with
I
this
set
small
up the office in general, all of their files, and established accounting procedures,
Okay.
got them set up with payroll, and we converted all of the work prior to that had been done in Excel spreadsheets.
Okay.
So I took those Excel spreadsheets and converted it into QuickBooks Desktop.
Gotcha. Okay.
And they had inventory. So it was a lot of work. Their inventory list was in excess of 40 pages.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
And so you got that all automated and into a
Yep.
system that actually tracked it instead of pulling up Excel and
Correct.
making sure you don't accidentally delete cells.
She still kept her Excel spreadsheet because it was nice to load onto her website
Okay.
for customers' use.
Gotcha.
So we sanitized it, and then it was available to customers for their use.
Okay. That's interesting. And so talk to us a little bit about the changes in technology that you've seen over the years that you've been in business. I'm sure it's changed greatly. So
yes,
maybe take us all the way back to the beginning through what you're seeing nowadays in terms of technology.
I'm a reluctant geek. I prefer focusing on the accounting and tax and payroll work, but because there's been so many changes that make my job more efficient and more effective, I've had to be pulled into the 21st century kicking and screaming.
Mm-hmm.
My first tax season, I did tax returns by hand,
Okay.
making copies of the forms and writing them in pencil,
Uh-huh.
and then making copies, and the IRS got the copies.
Gotcha. That's awesome. And so where are we today? So, I mean, I know like individuals, like we can just go on to your TurboTaxes and stuff, but so what does that process look like for you internally when you're working with clients?
It's getting more and more automated. The software that I currently use, we key the data entry from the information that the clients give us. Because W-2s in and of themselves are not standardized by any means. Every payroll service provider has a different format for the W-2s. Some are rectangular, some are in squares.
Mm-hmm.
The tax ID number is in all different kinds of places, so that's not very standardized. But what is standardized is the process of preparing a tax return. You meet with the client, you gather the data, you prepare the return, you call them and say your return is ready. They come in and they sign for it, they pay for the services, and then you submit it electronically.
Gotcha.
Electronic filing is one of the major changes that has streamlined the process for everybody.
Okay.
People are getting their refunds in 2 weeks
Mm-hmm.
instead of 3 months.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So even on your end, you're also e-filing as well. So, okay.
It saves us paper. It saves us storage space. It saves us filing cabinet requirements.
Gotcha.
It saves us a lot of different ways.
Okay. And so do you have business clients as well as individual
Yes.
clients? Okay. And so what percentage of your clients would you say is personal versus?
Individual tax returns are about a third of my annual revenue.
Okay.
And business tax returns are only about 10%.
Gotcha. Okay.
The rest is accounting and payroll and
Okay.
consulting.
Gotcha. Yeah, I want to dig into that a little bit. But so on a person for individuals, when does it make sense to just use the automated stuff like your TurboTaxes? And when does it make sense to, like, is there a level of complexity, I guess, in somebody's life where it makes more sense for them to get with an individual preparer versus, just using like the software that you can get online?
Well, everybody's different because different people have opinions about the Internal Revenue Service. Some people want to have a professional do it because they believe that they're less likely to get audited.
Mm-hmm.
And the fear in and of itself of getting audited keeps a lot of people from doing their tax returns themselves.
Okay.
And I certainly wouldn't bash TurboTax or anything like that, but a lot of people get easily confused by TurboTax.
Okay.
They don't understand the question that's being asked, or they answer the question incorrectly, and so by answering that question incorrectly, the rest of the return is done wrong.
Gotcha.
And then a year or two later, they hear from the IRS, and then they never want to do TurboTax again.
Understood. Okay.
I've got one client, for example, she's pretty capable of doing her tax return on TurboTax, except when it comes to her vacation rentals.
Okay.
So what she does is she gives me her password and her username every year. I log into her TurboTax account and I do everything that's specifically related to her vacation rental properties.
Gotcha. Okay.
She's currently got 2. And then once I'm done, I log out and I say, okay, I'm done. You're ready to go.
Okay.
And that's how I work with her.
Okay.
I've got some clients that want me to do everything. I do their bookkeeping work every month. I do their officer compensation for their business. I do their personal return. I do their business return. And we do some tax planning. So they basically have me handle everything.
Gotcha.
So I customize my services to what the client wants.
Okay. So if they just want help once a year with their tax return, then you're available to help with that. But if they need ongoing services, and then you're able to also be essentially their accounting department, it sounds
Correct.
like. So instead
That's
of
why I say back office assistant is
Gotcha.
how I like to describe myself. When I'm at Ignite You, I introduce myself as the tax lady
Right.
because that is a lot of what I do, but it's not everything I do.
Gotcha. Now that makes sense. I imagine for a smaller business, it can be challenging to pay for a full-time accounting person.
Right.
There may not be 40 hours a week worth of work. It's costly. You have to pay benefits and all that type of stuff. So then in that instance, you can be their accounts payable or their accounts receivable or their payroll or all three. Okay.
Right.
Do you get into like financial statement preparation, any of that type of stuff as well? Okay. And so if a business is going for a loan or something like that, then you can also...
Correct.
Gotcha.
Or people are buying a home or refinancing. A lot of the refinance companies do what I call a comfort letter. And they basically want the accountant to independently verify that they've been doing the tax return for so many years and that the distribution of income from the business account won't affect operations negatively.
Gotcha.
That's a very common request.
Huh. Okay. Maybe talk a little bit more about that then, because that's kind of interesting. I've refinanced a couple of homes, obviously at an individual level. I never owned a business when I did it. So what specifically are they? What are the mortgage company, I guess? What are they concerned about that you're helping to alleviate?
Well, they're looking for an independent party that has a vested interest in maintaining an arm's length relationship with the business. And especially if you're a sole member LLC, for mortgage purposes, they usually consider you self-employed.
Right.
So then they want a financial statement that's prepared by an independent party that they will sign that they've prepared this and to the best of my knowledge and beliefs, this is a true and correct statement of the company's revenue.
Gotcha. Okay. So as a sole proprietor, your income is essentially the business's income. And so
Correct.
they want to make sure that the business is going to hold up versus like I've only worked for larger entities. So me just showing my pay stubs is enough to
Correct.
say, okay, that pay should keep coming from this Fortune 500 company.
Exactly.
But when you're an individual, gotcha. Your
Yes.
money, your salary comes from you. Okay, so they want to see increased comfort with. Okay, that makes sense. Interesting. See, all these fun things I get to learn when I sit in this chair. So that's super awesome. So maybe talk a little bit more about the, I know we had chatted about this briefly, but talk more about the different levels and types of preparers there
Oh, okay.
are in the tax world and the different titles and where you can find them, and maybe some of the challenges associated with the different levels that are out there.
Sure. What a lot of people are not aware of is if they go to these franchise firms, that the person that's preparing the tax return for them has gone through the course of study that that firm offers, and the basic requirement is a high school diploma.
Okay.
So a lot of times there's individual interpretation of the tax laws that may or may not be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And my first exposure to that was in 1988. I had a client whose daughter went to one of those franchise firms and had her tax return done there. And this was her first year of having a hair salon.
Mm-hmm.
And the tax preparer told her that she could not claim her expenses until she made $5,000.
Okay.
And that's certainly not compliant with the Internal Revenue Service or the Franchise Tax Board in California by any means.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went in and amended her return for her, and she got several $1,000s back.
Gotcha.
And that was when I started paying attention to what was going on with these franchises and stuff like that. And,
Okay.
you know, you take a test to make sure that you're appropriate in the first place, and then you get their program that talks about the tax law changes, and that's really about it.
Okay.
As long as you can get through the Internal Revenue Service, prepare a tax ID number, which means that you've never been charged with a felony that disqualifies you from handling people's finances, you can get a job at one of these franchises.
Gotcha.
So their standards of employment are a little bit lower than what the rest of us are. I'm an enrolled agent, which means I am authorized to practice before the Internal Revenue Service for any return in any state.
Okay.
Whereas the unenrolled preparers, they can only represent to the Internal Revenue Service a return that they themselves have prepared. And that third-party designee only lasts for a year.
Gotcha. Okay. And so talk about so at the franchise, that's the unenrolled preparer.
Correct.
Okay. And so as an enrolled preparer, what were the additional requirements to do that?
Well, I had to take 3 tests, and they had to be proctored exams at an independent firm. And the first one was all about individual returns. Mm-hmm. The second one was all about business returns, and the third one was about ethics.
Okay.
Because enrolled agents are held to a higher level of ethics than an unenrolled preparer would be.
Gotcha.
And then I have my continuing professional education requirements every year, whereas unenrolled preparers don't have that.
Gotcha.
And CPAs are another category of preparers, and their focus is generally accounting because they're certified public accountants.
Right.
They can review financial statements, which I'm not authorized to do. They can do audits of tax returns and financial statements for like homeowners associations and stuff like that.
Okay.
Whereas I cannot render an opinion about a tax return like homeowners associations in California have to be audited every year.
Gotcha.
I've got a friend from high school who became a CPA later in life, and that's one of her niche marketings, is she audits HOAs.
Interesting.
Yeah. So as a CPA, she can do that. And
Gotcha.
I, as an enrolled agent, my focus is in taxes, not in accounting. Even though I have my degree in accounting, I'm a public accountant, not a certified public accountant. So I don't do reviews or that kind of stuff.
Okay.
With accounting, with financial statements. I can prepare financial statements, but they're internal use only.
Okay.
Whereas a CPA, they're the ones that get submitted to the board of directors for bigger firms.
Gotcha. That's where that certified piece is. They're able to certify a
Correct.
financial statement, whereas you know how you have the knowledge and ability and skill to prepare one,
Yes.
and it's accurate. But in terms of saying this is legit and putting a stamp on it that
Correct.
another body will
I can't
accept
render an
as
opinion on
got
it.
it.
Yep.
Okay,
That's one of the differences between CPAs and public accountants.
makes sense. Okay, and that seems like the need. It seems like you would have a specific need to need that level of service, and not everybody would need that level of service.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
The average small business really and truly isn't concerned about having their financial statements reviewed by a CPA and having an opinion rendered, because it would serve no purpose and it would be money that they could use in other ways.
Gotcha. I imagine that's not a very cheap service to have that done. So
Correct.
got it. So that's more of a as needed basis. And I assume you have good referral contacts then if somebody needs that
Yes.
to send them to
Yes,
to
here
that
and in
person.
California.
Gotcha. Cool. Do you still have clients then in California
Yes,
that
I
you
do.
continue to do? Okay.
I have about 30 tax returns that I do every year
Okay.
in California.
Awesome. So what maybe talk a little bit about just some of the changes in the tax laws that you've seen over, the last 40 years, I guess, just some of the trends you've seen or things that maybe people need to be more aware of in the last couple of years that maybe they didn't have to be prior.
Well, one of the biggest challenges that we as tax preparers have is that the depreciation schedule laws change every year,
Okay.
because a lot of it depends on what Congress is trying to encourage people to do, spend more money or save more money.
Okay.
And so the rules for depreciation, how long it can be written off, the bonus depreciation rules change every year, and they're actually going down and down and down. Several years ago it was 50%. Then it was down to 40%. Then it was 30%. Now it's 20%. And their definition of luxury automobiles is absolutely ludicrous. Several years ago, any vehicle over $18,500 fell under the luxury automobile rules for being able to write off accelerated depreciation.
I'm laughing because I bought a Scion IQ in 2013. That's the size of these two chairs put together, and it was about 16,500. So apparently approaching a luxury
Right
vehicle
below.
status, almost. So okay. Anything else that in the last couple of years that you've seen that people maybe? I guess where I'm going with this is, I think certain people probably have a comfort with doing their taxes themselves or using the online software. So I guess what I'm looking for are things that are scarier now, I guess, in the last couple of years that might encourage somebody that maybe has relied on sort of self-preparation to maybe consider that change over to having a professional kind of work with them.
I think that people who are self-employed definitely need to have a professional prepare their returns, because the tax law change that Mr. Trump decided to bring into law that's been most beneficial to those that are self-employed is this qualified business income deduction.
Okay.
And it's 20% of your net income as a tax credit.
Okay.
And I've had quite a few clients benefit greatly from that.
Gotcha.
The clients, on the other hand, that have not favored in the tax law changes are those that own their own home and pay a lot in property taxes and sales tax because of that cap.
Right.
Here in Washington State, we really haven't been affected by that as much as those in California or Connecticut, for example, because they pay a state income tax on a sliding scale that's anywhere from 2.3% to 9.3%. And when you lump the state and local withholding together with the property taxes, they're easily exceeding that $10,000 cap.
Right.
So they're losing the deduction.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I personally feel is going to affect us for a long time to come is the elimination of all the miscellaneous deductions. Union dues are no longer deductible. The tax preparation fee,
Right.
your estate planning fees for investments, that's no longer deductible. And the biggest one I personally feel is the per diem for truck drivers that are required to be away from home overnight.
Mm-hmm.
That's gone. So they used to be able to deduct $43 a day for every day that they were away from home overnight for meals. And then they were also able to deduct up to 80% of $103 a day for lodging, times the
Gotcha.
number of days that they were
Okay.
gone. And that's no longer an option if they're an employee.
Okay.
So the truck driving industry is trying to get their drivers to be forming their own LLCs, providing their own insurance, and either leasing the trucks from the company that they're driving for or having to go out in the general market and lease their own trucks
Gotcha.
in order to get that deduction, because that can easily be $20,000 to $30,000 a year
Right.
with the number of days that some of these truck drivers are gone from
Right.
home
Yeah.
overnight.
Huh. It's interesting. Yeah, it's silly when you hear about some of these rules that cause these crazy workarounds, and it just makes you wonder, like, where was the original impetus for the rule,
Correct.
knowing that all
I
you're
think
doing
it
is
was
creating headaches and
probably one of unintended results. I don't think that Trump intended to affect the transportation industry in such a negative way. At
Right.
least I'd like to think not,
Sure.
because our nation runs on truck drivers.
Yeah.
Really does.
Oh, absolutely.
From point A to point B, when you're talking cross country, there's really oftentimes no other way to get it to where it needs to be.
Yep. Yep. And especially, I know with us living where we do, and where most of us are on I-5 at some point during the day, then yeah,
Yes.
you can see just
From
how.
here to Tijuana.
That's right. Yeah. We won't get into any international shipments. I don't want to stir up any controversy. So
I've just been on I-5 from the Canadian border to the Mexican border off and on most of my life.
yeah,
And that's the bulk of what you see is truck drivers on
Absolutely.
Interstate 5.
Yep.
Border to border.
yep. And people cutting in front of truck drivers in their little teeny tiny cars and causing them to brake. But that's also a story for another day. So awesome. Yeah, no, that was super helpful information. So so what's the best way if somebody's, again, if a business is maybe just getting started, or if somebody who's been doing their own taxes for a while is thinking, hey, you know what, maybe this is the year that I, get the professional help. What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
If anybody is interested in reaching out to me, I encourage you to do so via email, text message, or my Facebook page is also a valid way to reach me.
And what is that? What's the Facebook page?
The Tax Lady, followed by the number 4 and the letter U.
Got it. Tax Lady for you. Awesome.
Which is also my website.
Okay.
Which is also my Outlook account.
Got
my
it.
email.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. Yeah, no, this was super fun and super informative for me. So I appreciate always sitting here again and getting that opportunity to learn. So thank you so much.
Thank
Vanessa.
you.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
And thank you guys so much, as always, for tuning in. Next week, we'll hear from Jimmy Smith with Violet Services. So you guys have a great rest of your Friday and a great weekend, and keep chasing your dreams. Thanks.
Thank you.